The post office was quiet, a refuge from the Oregon drizzle. But when the decorated black female veteran walked in, her quiet confidence was mistaken for a threat by the one man with a badge and a bias. The town of Redwood Creek, Oregon, didn't so much exist as it did persist, huddled under the perpetual shadow of ancient, moss-covered giants. It was a place where the air tasted of pine sap and damp earth, and the sky was a permanent shade of bruised gray. The steady, misting rain wasn't weather, it was a feature of the landscape, a constant companion that washed the color from the hand-painted signs on Main Street and seeped into the bones of the old timber buildings. The U.S. Post Office was the town's weary heart, a squat brick building where the low hum of fluorescent lights and the metallic clink of P.O. box doors were the prevailing soundtrack. Into this hermetically sealed world of quiet routines, Dr. Anya Sharma walked. She was 45, though she carried her age with the understated grace of someone who had long ago stopped counting the years and started counting experiences instead. Her presence was a study in contrasts. A dark gray pantsuit, impeccably tailored but made of a practical, durable fabric, spoke of federal business, not small-town life. Her hair was styled in neat, tight coils, framing a face that was calm, intelligent, and unreadable. She moved with an economy of motion, a certain stillness even in action, that hinted at a past life defined by discipline. It was in her posture as she stood in the short line, not rigid, but perfectly balanced, a classic military at ease stance that conserved energy while maintaining total situational awareness. Her eyes, dark and perceptive, didn't dart around but seemed to absorb the entire room in a single, sweeping glance. The tired-looking postal clerk behind the counter, the young mother trying to wrangle a toddler with a fistful of letters, the two old loggers in plaid flannel discussing lumber prices in hushed, gravelly voices. In her hand, she held a reinforced portfolio, its dark leather scuffed at the corners from countless journeys. A faint, almost invisible Department of Justice seal was embossed near the spine. It was a detail meant to be overlooked by most, but a glaring tell for those who knew what to look for. She wasn't expecting to be noticed, but she was prepared for it. Deputy Caleb Holt, 28, kicked the mud from his standard-issue boots on the bristly welcome mat before stepping inside. He'd just finished a pointless call about teenagers playing music too loud in the grocery store parking lot, a weekly ritual. He was third-generation Redwood Creek law enforcement. His father's picture, a stern man in the same sheriff's office uniform, hung back at the station. Caleb wore that legacy like a coat that was a size too big, and he filled the space with a swagger born of insecurity. He was just there to pick up the station's mail, but his internal radar, finely tuned by small-town suspicion and inherited biases, snagged on Anya Sharma immediately. His eyes narrowed. She wasn't just a stranger, she was a type. A black woman, alone, dressed too well for this town, carrying herself with an authority that, in his world, she hadn't earned. His mind, a library of unwritten, unofficial training, instantly categorized her. Outsider. City. Potential trouble. He saw her quiet confidence not as composure, but as arrogance. He saw her observational stillness not as awareness, but as a casing of the joint. The loggers fell silent as he passed, giving him respectful nods. The young mother pulled her child a little closer. He was the law here, a familiar, if intimidating, part of the town's ecosystem. Anya, however, didn't seem to register his presence at all as she reached the front of the line. This lack of deference pricked at Caleb's pride. He adjusted his duty belt, the leather creaking in the quiet room. He squared his shoulders, puffed out his chest, and made a decision. He wasn't just going to get the mail. He was going to handle the situation. Caleb let Anya complete her transaction, mailing a single, thick envelope via registered mail, before he made his move. He stepped up beside her, deliberately invading her personal space, forcing her to turn and acknowledge him. He pitched his voice to be pleasant, but the undercurrent of challenge was unmistakable. "Can I help you with something, ma'am?" Anya turned her head slowly, her expression placid. "No, deputy. I'm fine, thank you." She knew his rank without looking at his sleeve. It was a small detail, but it was the first crack in his composure. He forced a tight, condescending smile. "You're not from around here, are you? Don't see many folks dressed for the city in Redwood Creek." "Business brings me here," she replied, her voice even and cool, offering no unnecessary information. Her brevity was a wall, and Caleb immediately began looking for a way to climb it. "What kind of business?" he pressed, his tone shifting from faux friendly to openly inquisitive. "The confidential kind," Anya said, turning as if to leave. That was the spark. Caleb took a half-step to block her path. "Whoa, hold on now. Confidential sounds a little suspicious. See, we're a quiet town. We like to know who's visiting." Anya met his gaze directly now, and for the first time, he felt a flicker of something he couldn't identify. It wasn't fear or anger. It was patience. A deep, unnerving patience, like a geologist studying a rock. "My visit is perfectly legal, Deputy. Your curiosity doesn't give you the right to detain me." "I'm not detaining you," he scoffed, his voice getting louder. "I'm having a conversation. For community safety." He pointed his chin toward her portfolio. "What's in the bag?" "My work." "And what is your work?" "As I said, it's confidential." His eyes narrowed again, this time locking onto the faint DOJ seal he'd only half noticed before. Adrenaline surged through him, a jolt of validation. It wasn't just a hunch, it was real. "That's a federal seal. You claiming to be a Fed?" "We get all kinds of people in here pretending to be things they're not. YouTubers, auditors, troublemakers." Anya's voice remained dangerously calm. "I haven't claimed to be anything, Deputy. You saw an emblem on a piece of leather. That isn't a crime. It is if you're impersonating a federal officer," he snapped back, his hand instinctively going to his hip. The young man who had been watching from the corner now had his phone up, discreetly recording. The postal clerk was frozen behind the counter, his eyes wide. "You're making a significant leap in logic, Deputy Holt," Anya said, using his name. She'd read it from his uniform tag, but to him, it felt like she'd plucked it from his mind. It unnerved him further. "That's it," he said, stepping back and grabbing the radio mic on his shoulder. His voice boomed through the silent post office, full of self-importance. "Dispatch, this is 3 Adam 15. I'm at the U.S. Post Office on Main. I have a possible 10 to 56, subject impersonating a federal officer. Requesting immediate backup. Subject is a black female, approximately 5'10", wearing a gray suit. Potentially hostile." He'd done it. He had escalated a conversation into a federal incident, right there on federal property. He looked at her with a triumphant smirk, expecting her to finally break, to show fear, to protest. Instead, Anya Sharma simply blinked, a slow, deliberate motion. A profound, almost pitying sigh escaped her lips, a wisp of vapor in the cool air. "You have no idea what you've just done," she said, not as a threat, but as a statement of fact. The air in the post office grew thick and heavy, charged with the energy of Caleb Holt's broadcasted call. The remaining patrons, once just curious, were now frozen in place, unwilling participants in a drama that had suddenly become very real. The only sound was the incessant drizzle tapping against the high windows and the crackle of the radio on Caleb's shoulder. He stood there, legs braced, a self-satisfied glint in his eye. He had asserted his authority. He had taken control. Then, Anya Sharma moved. It wasn't a sudden or aggressive action. It was a slow, methodical sequence that drew every eye in the room. First, she calmly placed her leather portfolio on the worn linoleum counter. Click. The sound was unnaturally loud. Then, she turned to face Caleb fully, her body language open, non-threatening, yet radiating an aura of absolute command. "Deputy Holt," she began, her voice low but carrying with perfect clarity. "I'm going to give you one opportunity to de-escalate this situation. I want you to get on your radio, cancel your request for backup, and return to your vehicle. We can both forget this encounter ever happened." Caleb laughed, a short, sharp bark of disbelief. "You think you're in a position to give me orders? Backup's already on its way. You're in a world of trouble." "No, Deputy," Anya replied, her eyes holding his, unwavering. "You are." She reached slowly into the inside pocket of her gray blazer. Caleb's hand tightened on the grip of his service weapon, his knuckles turning white. The young mother let out a small gasp and shielded her child's eyes. But Anya didn't produce a weapon. She pulled out a thin, black leather wallet, the kind that folds in the middle. She didn't flash it for the room to see. This wasn't for them. This was just for him. She opened it with a flick of her wrist and held it low, angled so only he could see the contents. Caleb's eyes, full of arrogant certainty just a moment before, now widened in stages as his brain struggled to process the image. Inside the wallet, nestled in a custom-cut recess, was a heavy, gold and silver medallion. The eagle's wings were spread wide, its talons clutching a scale of justice. The words engraved around the edge were stark and undeniable, United States Department of Justice. Below it, set in a separate cutout, was a photo ID card. It showed the same calm, unreadable face that was now staring directly at him. The name read, Dr. Anya Sharma. And her title, printed in bold capital letters, was Senior Investigator. His breath hitched. The blood drained from his face, leaving a pasty, mottled complexion. The world seemed to warp at the edges. This wasn't a fake. The weight, the detail, the sheer, official gravity of it, it was real. His entire theory, his entire justification for this confrontation, evaporated in an instant. Anya closed the wallet with a soft snap. "I am Senior Investigator Anya Sharma, Department of Justice, Office of the Inspector General," she stated, her voice devoid of any emotion except a chilling precision. "I am here in Redwood Creek on a classified federal assignment under the authority of a sealed grand jury indictment." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle into the stunned silence of the room. Caleb's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His mind was a frantic scramble of protocols and regulations he had just violated. Interfering with a federal agent. Making a false report. On federal property. Then came the final, devastating blow. Anya leaned in just slightly, her voice dropping to an almost conspiratorial whisper that only he could hear. "And the man I was sent here to see, Deputy, is your boss, Sheriff Marcus Thorne." The last remnants of Caleb's bravado shattered like glass. He felt a cold dread creep up his spine, a feeling far worse than fear. It was the feeling of a man who has just confidently marched off the edge of a cliff. Anya straightened up, took her badge wallet, and laid it flat on the counter between them. A quiet, loaded object. "You called for backup, Deputy," she said, her voice returning to a normal, conversational volume for all to hear. "Congratulations. They're about to arrive." It took less than 5 minutes for the king of Redwood Creek to arrive. Sheriff Marcus Thorne's oversized Ford F-250, a beast of chrome and black steel with an obnoxious light bar on the roof, screeched to a halt in front of the post office, its tires spitting gravel. The truck was an extension of the man himself, loud, intimidating, and built to project an image of untouchable power. The post office door swung open with a bang, and Thorne filled the doorway. He was a big man in his 50s, with a barrel chest, a thick neck, and a face that looked like it had been carved from weathered oak. He wore his uniform with a proprietary air, the silver star on his chest polished to a blinding gleam. His eyes, small and hard like chips of granite, scanned the room before landing on his deputy, who now looked pale and lost. "Caleb, what in the hell is so important you had to call in at 10 to 56? Thorne's voice was a low growl that rumbled through the room, a voice used to instant obedience. He then shifted his gaze to Anya, dismissing her with a contemptuous once-over. "And who is this?" Before Caleb could stammer out a reply, Anya stepped forward, calm and composed amidst the maelstrom she had created. "Sheriff Thorne," she said, her voice cutting through his bluster. "You know my name," Thorne grunted, a smirk playing on his lips. He saw this as a sign of his own importance. "But I don't know you. So you're the one causing all this fuss. Let me guess, another one of these First Amendment auditors looking for a payout?" "Not quite," Anya said. She reached into her portfolio and retrieved a long, sealed envelope, which she held out to him. "I'm Senior Investigator Anya Sharma, Department of Justice. And this is for you." Thorne snatched the envelope from her hand, his smirk widening into a sneer. "DOJ? You think some paperwork from some desk jockey in DC scares me? In this town, I am the law." He tore the envelope open with a flourish. His eyes scanned the first page, a subpoena signed by a federal judge, attached to a multi-page document stamped sealed indictment. His sneer faltered. The color began to drain from his ruddy face. What is this garbage?" "That garbage, Sheriff," Anya said, her voice hardening, "is the end of your career. It's a federal indictment charging you with 27 counts, starting with racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations act violations." She reached back into her portfolio and pulled out a second, thicker file. She opened it and began to speak, her voice a steady, relentless cadence of accusation. It details a conspiracy of witness tampering, specifically threatening the family of Maria Flores after her son, Leo, went missing 2 summers ago, a case you officially closed in 48 hours, citing a runaway. "We have the testimony of the deputy you ordered to falsify that report." Thorne's jaw tightened. "Lies." It details the misuse of public funds, diverting over $200,000 from the asset forfeiture account into an untraceable slush fund used to pay off informants and intimidate business owners who wouldn't play along. She flipped a page. "We have the bank records. Every transfer. You've got nothing." Thorne snarled, his hand inching toward his sidearm. "It details a pattern of civil rights violations," Anya continued, her voice rising slightly, dominating the room. "Including ordering your deputies to conduct illegal traffic stops in the migrant workers' camp, fabricating charges to meet arrest quotas. We have your text messages to known criminal intermediaries, discussing which individuals to target." She looked him dead in the eye. "Shall I continue? Obstruction of justice, illegal wiretaps, bribery, the list is quite extensive." The room was utterly silent, save for Anya's voice and Thorne's ragged breathing. The power in the room had shifted completely. It was no longer held by the man with the silver star, but by the woman with the truth in her hands. "You think you can walk into my town," Thorne hissed, his voice trembling with rage, "and walk out with me in cuffs? This town belongs to me. These people are loyal to." His words were cut short. The front door of the post office swung open again. A tall man in a tactical vest with U.S. Marshal emblazoned in bold yellow letters stepped inside. Then another appeared at the back emergency exit. A third and fourth materialized, seemingly from the shadows. They moved with a fluid, professional lethality that made Caleb Holt's earlier swagger look like a child's game. The lead marshal, a man with a shaved head and impassive eyes, spoke. "Marcus Thorne, this is a federal operation. You are under arrest by order of the United States District Court." Thorne looked around wildly, his confidence finally cracking. He saw the faces of his townspeople, the logger, the mother, the postal clerk, staring at him not with loyalty, but with a mixture of fear and awe. He saw the young man's phone, still recording everything. His kingdom had crumbled in less than 10 minutes. His hand twitched, a last, desperate instinct. But the marshals were faster. In a blur of motion, they closed the distance. Thorne was spun around, slammed against the mail sorting table, and cuffed, the sharp zip of the plastic ties echoing the finality of his downfall. He was face down on the floor of the post office, his ego shattered, his reign over. Caleb Holt stood frozen, a statue of disbelief. Anya calmly gathered her files, her work here almost done. She turned to the shell-shocked deputy. "You called for backup, Deputy," she said, her voice even. "Congratulations. They came." The chaos subsided as quickly as it had erupted. The U.S. Marshals were ruthlessly efficient, securing the now sobbing Sheriff Thorne and clearing the post office with quiet, firm commands. The witnesses were identified, their details noted for statements. The circus hadn't arrived yet. For a few precious hours, Redwood Creek was suspended in a state of shock, the fall of its king echoing through the damp, quiet streets. An hour later, Dr. Anya Sharma walked into the sheriff's office. The room was a monument to Marcus Thorne's ego. Plaques for community service covered one wall, a starkly ironic display. A large, framed photo of him shaking the governor's hand sat on the corner of his massive oak desk. The air smelled of stale coffee and cheap cigar smoke. Caleb Holt sat in a visitor's chair, looking small and lost. He was staring at his own hands, his uniform now feeling like a costume. He had been ordered to wait here. He wasn't under arrest, but he wasn't free either. He was in limbo. Anya closed the door behind her, the soft click making Caleb flinch. She didn't sit behind the sheriff's desk. That would be a power play, and this was about something else. Instead, she pulled up another chair and sat opposite him, creating a space of equals. There was no anger in her demeanor, no gloating. Just a profound, focused resolve. "We aren't here to destroy people, Deputy Holt," she began, her voice calm and measured. "We're here to dismantle patterns. And that always starts with the truth." He scoffed, a pathetic, broken sound. He crossed his arms over his chest, a defensive posture that couldn't hide the trembling in his hands. "So that's it. You just roll in, flip the whole town upside down, and now you want a confession. You want me to admit I was part of it?" "I don't need you to admit anything," Anya said, leaning forward slightly. "The evidence already tells the story. What I need you to do is remember everything." She slid a thick file folder across the space between them. It wasn't one of the pristine files from her portfolio, this one was worn, its contents a collection of photocopies and printouts. His name was on the tab. Caleb Holt. He opened it numbly. Inside were incident reports he had signed, each one a small lie. A resisting arrest charge on a kid who had merely been slow to comply. A suspicious person stop that yielded nothing but humiliation for the person involved. He saw body cam logs that mysteriously ended just before a contentious arrest. He saw civilian complaints, submitted by people he barely remembered harassing, each one stamped with the same dismissive phrase, "unfounded." Case closed. All signed off by Sheriff Thorne. "This is just paperwork," he mumbled, trying to deny the weight of it. "Standard procedure." "Is it?" Anya asked softly. She reached into her portfolio and took out a small, digital audio recorder. She pressed play. The sound that filled the silent office was grainy, distorted by wind noise, but unmistakable. First, Caleb's own voice, tight with adrenaline, "Stop resisting. Put your hands behind your back, now." Then another voice, younger, cracking with fear, "I'm not resisting, sir. I'm not. Please, you're hurting my arm." It was the voice of the 14-year-old boy from the audio file she had reviewed 100 times, the son of a migrant worker, accused of trespassing on his way home from school. Then came the sounds. A sharp, sickening thud. A pained grunt. And then, silence. Just the sound of Caleb's own heavy breathing. Anya stopped the recording. Caleb's breath caught in his throat. He remembered. He remembered the kid's face, terrified. He remembered the flash of anger he'd felt, the need to assert dominance. He remembered twisting the boy's arm just a little too hard, hearing the pop. He had told himself it was the boy's own fault for not complying fast enough. He had filed the report, omitting the injury, and Thorne had made it all go away. "You didn't mean to break his arm," Anya said quietly, her voice piercing through his memory. But you didn't report it, either. You stood by and let the official record say he was the aggressor. And now that boy is out there, probably for the rest of his life, believing that he was the one who did something wrong. Believing that this is what justice feels like. That was the moment the dam broke. It wasn't a shout or a threat that did it. It was a simple, unvarnished mirror held up to his soul. He looked down at the file, at the mountain of small compromises and silent complicities that had led to this moment. The legacy he was so proud of was a legacy of lies. His voice, when he finally spoke, was barely a whisper. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to talk," Anya said, her voice gentle but firm. "Not to save yourself. Not for a deal. I want you to talk because you were inside the circle. You know the rules, you know the players, you know how it all operated. Thorn was the head of the snake, but the body is still there. Someone has to be the one to break the silence. Not with a shout, but with the truth." Caleb Holt looked at the picture of his father on the wall, then at the empty chair where Marcus Thorn used to sit. For the first time, he didn't see strength or loyalty. He saw a cage. He nodded slowly, not because he trusted her, but because for the first time in his life, he couldn't trust the silence anymore. Caleb Holt talked. And once he started, he couldn't stop. What he revealed made Anya's already damning case look like a preliminary sketch. He detailed the unwritten rules of the Redwood Creek Sheriff's Office. How officers were instructed to aggressively patrol the roads leading to the immigrant labor camps, not for public safety, but to generate fines and seize vehicles. He explained how internal affairs complaints were automatically routed to a private email inbox controlled by Thorn himself. He laid out how promotions weren't based on merit, but on a willingness to look the other way, and how any deputy who raised concerns would find themselves scheduled for a permanent night shift with no backup in the most remote parts of the county. This wasn't just a case of a few bad apples. It was a poisoned orchard. With Holt's sworn testimony, the federal case exploded onto the national stage. Within 24 hours, the media circus Anya had predicted arrived in full force. Satellite vans lined Main Street, their dishes aimed at the sky like metallic sunflowers. Sharp-suited civil rights attorneys flew in from San Francisco and Portland, holding press conferences on the steps of the now-sealed sheriff's office. Federal oversight committees in D.C. demanded access to every file, every record, every piece of evidence. Redwood Creek was no longer a quiet, forgotten town hidden behind a curtain of rain. It had become a spotlight. And under that harsh, unforgiving light, the rot that had festered in the shadows for decades was finally exposed. But Anya Sharma didn't stay for the interviews. Her name was never mentioned in the press conferences. She had what she came for, a breach in the armor and a witness from within. She left the rest to the courts, the lawyers, and the slow, grinding gears of justice. Her job was done. She was waiting on the platform of the small, rustic train station on the edge of town, the only public transport that connected Redwood Creek to the wider world. The air was clean, washed by another passing shower. That's when she saw Caleb Holt approaching. He wasn't in uniform. He wore jeans and a simple jacket, no badge, no gun. He looked younger, and for the first time, at peace. I wanted to say I'm sorry," he said quietly, his eyes fixed on the ground. Anya didn't offer him easy forgiveness. "Don't say it to me," she replied, her voice firm but not unkind. "Say it to the next person you see who looks afraid when you walk into a room. Say it to the memory of Leo Flores. Say it with your actions, long after these cameras are gone. Say it when no one else is looking." He finally met her gaze and nodded slowly, a deep understanding passing between them. Do you think any of this can be fixed?" Anya paused, watching the train pull in, its horn echoing off the distant mountains. "No one person can fix it alone," she said. "But you can stop it from growing. You can be the one who refuses to pass the poison down to the next generation." She stepped onto the train and took a seat by the window. Caleb remained on the platform, watching until the train pulled away. As Redwood Creek disappeared behind a curtain of towering trees, Anya opened her worn leather notebook to a blank page. At the top, she wrote, "Case closed." Then, below that, she added one more line, softer, more personal. A note to herself. Sometimes the most dangerous threat isn't the person with the gun. It's the silence we've all learned to live with. The story of Redwood Creek is far from over. The fall of a corrupt sheriff is just the first step. The real work of rebuilding trust, healing a community, and ensuring this never happens again has only just begun. It takes courage for one person to break the cycle, but it takes a whole community to build a new one. What do you think? Can a system that is broken be truly fixed from within? What does it take for good people to stand up against a corrupt culture? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We ask that you please be respectful to everyone in the discussion. And if you are moved by this story of courage and justice, please hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to see it, and subscribe for more true stories that matter.